At 25,000 feet, inside a glass bubble barely wider than a coffin, one man had about 10 seconds to live. That was the reality for Staff Sergeant Michael Aruth on the morning of July 30th, 1943. Somewhere ahead, beyond the gray English dawn, more than 300 German fighters were already waiting, and the official instructions given to men like him? Wait. Wait until the enemy is close enough that you can't miss. Close enough that you might already be dead. But Aruth was about to do something that challenged everything the U.S. Army Air Forces believed about survival, and it would change bomber warfare forever. The loneliest job in the war. At 0615, Aruth crawled into the tail of a B-17 flying fortress called Tondelayo, parked at RAF Kimballton. He was only 24 years old. 12 combat missions completed, 3 confirmed kills. But numbers didn't matter much back here, because the tail gunner's station wasn't really a position. It was a trap. A narrow compartment barely 4 feet wide, 5 feet long. 2 Browning .50 caliber machine guns pointed backward through plexiglass. No armor, no cover, no escape, just freezing air, thin aluminum, and whatever the Luftwaffe decided to send. The 8th Air Force called it the loneliest job in the war. 40 feet of fuselage separated him from the rest of the crew. If something went wrong, no one could reach him. If he was hit, he died alone, and the statistics were brutal. In the summer of 1943, the average bomber crew survived 11 missions before being shot down, captured, or killed. Tail gunners died faster than almost anyone. German pilots loved attacking from behind. The tail absorbed the first bullets, the first cannon shells, the first deaths. Aruth knew exactly what that meant, because he had already seen it. A doctrine that was getting men killed. The official gunnery doctrine was simple. Conserve ammunition, fire only under 300 yards, short bursts. Careful aim. It sounded logical. In a classroom. But combat wasn't a classroom. At 300 yards, German fighters were already firing. The Focke-Wulf 190 carried 20-millimeter cannons. A single burst could shred the plexiglass bubble, kill the gunner instantly, and cripple the bomber's tail controls. Bombers without tail protection became floating corpses. And Aruth had watched it happen. On his 6th mission, a B-17 flying off Tondelayo's wing took a direct hit to the tail. The gunner never fired a single shot. The fighter came in fast. The first rounds punched through the glass. The bomber fell out of formation, trailing smoke. 8 parachutes appeared. The tail gunner was not among them. Aruth couldn't forget that. And slowly, a terrifying thought formed. The Luftwaffe wasn't just attacking bombers. They were exploiting American training like a road map. German pilots knew U.S. gunners waited until 300 yards. So they opened fire at 600. By the time Americans squeezed the trigger, the damage was already done. Aruth realized something doctrine refused to admit. Patience was killing them. A choice that could save or doom them. That morning, 186 B-17s lifted off across eastern England. Their target, Kassel, deep inside Germany. The escort was limited. P-47 Thunderbolts could only protect them partway. Fuel meant the fighters would turn back over Belgium. After that, the bombers would fly alone. Aruth checked his ammunition belts. 400 rounds per gun, 800 total. The manual said it was enough. Aruth had already decided the manual was wrong about everything else. By noon, he would find out. The cost of being wrong wasn't failure. It was a telegram to his family, a closed-casket funeral, 10 dead men sinking into Europe, the geometry of death. German pilots understood math. A Messerschmitt Bf 109, closing from 6 o'clock, had nearly 10 seconds of firing time. 10 seconds to aim, 10 seconds to kill. The tail gunner had those same 10 seconds to hit a target moving at combined speeds near 600 miles per hour. Most never got the chance. But Aruth was thinking differently. A fighter at 600 yards wasn't small. It was flying straight at him. Nose pointed directly toward his position, the largest possible target. And if he fired early, he could walk tracers onto the enemy, force him to break, disrupt the attack before cannon shells ever reached the bomber. Yes, it burned ammunition. But Aruth reached a simple conclusion. A gunner who conserved bullets but died on the third attack had made a useless bargain. Dead men didn't need extra rounds. Breaking the rules. His first test came weeks earlier over St. Nazaire. 2 Bf 109s approached from low 6 o'clock. Doctrine said, "Wait." Aruth opened fire at 700 yards. The tracers arced upward. The German pilot saw them and flinched. He broke off early, diving away before reaching cannon range. His wingman followed. No hits, no casualties. But after landing, the crew chief confronted him. Aruth had fired nearly 200 rounds. At that rate, he'd run dry before reaching Germany. Some called him reckless. Others whispered he was gambling with the crew's lives. But Tondelayo kept coming home. Other bombers didn't. By mid-July, 3 aircraft from the squadron were gone. 30 men vanished into Europe. Aruth was still alive. Now, over Belgium, the escorts turned back. The Thunderbolts wagged their wings and disappeared toward England. And ahead, the sky belonged to Germany. The gauntlet begins. At 11:42 a.m., the first fighters appeared, groups of 4, then 8, then 12. Aruth stopped counting. Black crosses filled the horizon. The lead fighter dove from 6 o'clock high at 400 miles per hour. Aruth tracked it at 800 yards. He squeezed both triggers. The twin Brownings roared. Tracers streamed out. At first they fell short. Then Aruth walked them upward at 600 yards. Sparks erupted along the fighter's engine. The pilot broke hard right, smoke trailing behind him. He never fired. He never completed the pass. And Aruth had no time to celebrate. Another attacker was already closing, then another, then another. For 47 minutes, German fighters slashed through the formation. Aruth fired at everything within range. His barrels glowed red. His ammunition vanished faster than doctrine ever allowed. At 12:29, a Bf 109 came straight in, stubbornly level. Aruth centered it, held the triggers, 6 continuous seconds, over 100 rounds. The Messerschmitt disintegrated, wings folding, engines separating. Tumbling past so close Aruth could see the empty cockpit. 2 confirmed kills, ammunition down to 180 rounds. And Castle was still ahead, hit, but still fighting. At 12:51, the bombers began their bombing run. Straight and level, maximum vulnerability. The Luftwaffe attacked with renewed fury. A Focke-Wulf 190 dove from the 5 o'clock position. Aruth fired. Rounds struck the wing root, but the fighter kept coming. Cannon shells tore through the tail. Aruth felt impacts before pain. Fragments ripped through plexiglass, shredded his suit, buried into his left arm and shoulder. His left gun jammed. Hydraulic fluid sprayed across the compartment. Blood pooled, freezing instantly in sub-zero air. He kept firing with the right gun. One-handed, bleeding. The final burst caught the fighter's tail. Its snap rolled downward. 3rd kill. And he had only 63 rounds left. The mission was only half over. Now they had to fly home. The legacy. In November of 1943, gunnery doctrine changed. Tail gunners were authorized to engage at longer ranges, carefully worded, but unmistakable. The method that kept Aruth alive became policy. He would never see its full impact. Head injuries later grounded him permanently. Final tally: 17 confirmed kills, among the highest-scoring bomber gunners of the war. He spent the rest of World War II training others, passing on the lesson written in blood and cold air: don't wait to be shot, fight first. Survive. Michael Aruth died in 1990. His headstone lists only name, rank, and dates. It doesn't mention the fighters he destroyed, or the crews he saved, or the doctrine he reshaped. Military cemeteries are full of understatements, but stories like his refuse to stay silent. Because in a 4-foot glass bubble at the edge of a bomber, one man proved that sometimes the difference between death and survival is the courage to challenge the rules.